afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tuto Masasa, your host for the LeadForward series, where we get to collaborate with industry experts, captains of industry, in order to build greater collaboration in building a resilient economy for South Africa. In this last episode, I am joined by my colleagues from BDO South Africa across different service lines, including cybersecurity, risk advisory services, forensic services, as well as digital advisory. In today's topic, we'll be really looking and honing into the value of integrated advisory services. As we know, integrated advisory is a comprehensive approach in providing advice and problem solving. It involves a team of professionals from various disciplines and expertise, as well as industry knowledge. What it does, it helps with making sure that decisions that are taken in one function of a business, they align strategically to the overall company goals, and therefore driving synergies and alleviating conflict within an organization itself. So with that said, I'm going straight into you, Kaya, perhaps maybe looking back in the various projects that you have been doing in the past, how different teams have come together and added value to our clients.
Thanks for that, Tuto. It's great that I think businesses are recognizing the value that digital technologies can bring to their businesses. Digital enables businesses to perform better. Whether perform better means they make more money, they increase their customer footprint, or they keep wowing their customer. And digital acts in all those areas to then help that business do that particular area better. And I think within BDO, we are really starting to pull together in terms of leveraging the different, call it the pillars of capabilities that we have within advisory. I recall a project that we did for a client in the tourism and hospitality space. It involved no less than 3 sub-service lines sitting on this table. The client wanted to really just digitize how they managed new customers and existing customers within their marketing division. It actually came out as a finding which I think in our internal audit and risk business, represented by Kobe here, they had done some sort of audit or assessment within the client, but the one business that was really, really keen to close those findings was the marketing department for this tourism client. So they led with having to bring in a CRM system. So the one team that did the work was our risk advisory business. Then the second team that was brought in was digital. We then helped the client implement a customer relationship management system. And when we were done, we then said, guys, we don't mark our own homework. So we lay down and implement this new system. We now need to bring in some of our colleagues who will then come in and actually assess that the system that's been implemented has been done properly. There aren't any vulnerabilities with that system. And any data that is passed now from this one application, which is new in this environment, doesn't bring new threats in another area. We then brought in our cybersecurity team. We then came in, did the assessment and said, okay, this is what you need to lay down and have in place. And that implementation was led by Gilchrist. So for me, that talks to an example where there's collaboration that started with one team and then carried on and involved quite a few of the capabilities sitting around here.
Brilliant. And maybe I can jump into the 2 risk people then sitting on my left-hand side. With that build-up, maybe Kobe, you can give us a view on how you guys actually look at findings, and the value then it brings to clients and how it led to that particular collaborative project.
Thank you, Tuto. And I think it's always important when you in our environment to understand the environment. What we have seen from a risk advisory perspective is if you don't understand your client, there's zero to little value that you add. Learned it very early in one's career where when you test controls, it's not only about what's documented in an SOP or standard operating procedure, but it's actually going onto site and see what machinery does for the environment or what people have to do. So adding on to what Kaya said, I can refer to a number of projects where we had similar engagements, where a couple of us have taken hands. And again, it started with one assessing the environment, but physically going to the ground operations. Right. Understanding, for example, and just one of the examples one can use is to understand what an autoclave is. None of us grow up in a school where you learn about an autoclave and that it's actually a massive microwave that sterilizes equipment in hospitals. But without understanding that, you can't assess the controls around a functioning autoclave and how to then create an environment where the machinery can talk to each other, influence a maintenance plan that needs to be developed that can be digitalized. And I think that's quite key. So from an early stage in any project, it is about getting to the ground and us understanding what happens so that one can then elevate what best practice would be. So what we've seen in the past is from a risk advisory perspective, and that's the advisory side, but even from an internal audit perspective, it is about understanding the environment, understanding the controls to enable the advisor in you to either search for the right advisor. But the nice part of this project was where we could take hands, understanding from a maintenance perspective where the risks are, where corruption can also take place because maintenance on these specialized type of equipment is expensive. So there would be a portion where we can take hands with Anne-Marie and team. A cybersecurity hack on a system as such can dilapidate a health institution where there's nothing that can be done in terms of, or nothing digitally that could be done with certain aspects. I think the bigger portion for us was initially when we started looking at the business itself. You have your process analysts or the business process analysts that can come in, that can support us from a risk advisory perspective. But we had to assess what needed to be done to allow this health institution to build a capable team of experts. So that brought along our organizational development team to understand what we have on the ground. Do we upskill people? Do we replace people? Because for every person there's a space. So it was about redesigning an organizational team that could enable machines to work. And if we bring it closer to who we are as BDO, through that process we elevated people, we elevated processes or business, and through that the society was served better. That's but one example where we have collaborated. I think there's a couple where in our environment your top risks currently is people or talent as a risk, cybersecurity as a risk, and then the economy, whether it's an outflow of cash that was misappropriated, whether it's outflow of cash doing the right thing with the money that was allocated, whether you're private or public sector. From an internal audit perspective, we know that is key. We know those are the risks until 2030, which is only 6 years from now, but 2040 might not paint a different picture if we don't enable our clients through sound digital strategies to see what they can do, taking hands to make sure that their systems are safe for pen testing, and then where the pawpaw has hit the fan, where the experts come in to actually trace where money has gone to and keep. Yeah, but if you allow me to continue, we'll be at it. But those are some examples.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely brilliant example that you've given, and I think you've drawn in various expertise. You've spoken about forensics, how you guys, collaborate through within the forensic experts, cybersecurity, people, digital, and through then the lens of trying to obviously circumvent the risk element within the strategy of an organization. Maybe diverting to you then, Gilchrist, maybe you can just kind of delve into the lessons learned in some of the projects that you've done this collaborative work. And I'm pretty sure your division is one of those that get drawn in, by everybody because security, as Kobe has indicated, in terms of the WF really ranks as in the top 5 risks that everybody world over faces at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Tudor. For such a difficult question or responsibility on my side. As you mentioned, cyber insecurity is one of the top 10 risks and as classified by the World Economic Forum. One being disinformation and misinformation due to AI. Number 2 being climate change, which makes sense. Number 3, strange enough, is polarization. And then 4 being cybersecurity. What we're seeing in terms of the industry trends is we're seeing cybersecurity becoming a game changer, especially when you speak about business growth and also successful digital transformation. What we normally have to do with our clients, and you have to understand this, that the world, the way it has shifted, it's shifted because of the acceleration in advanced technology and also digital transformation. Same as cybersecurity, we're seeing it also shift, but not fast enough because technology is moving quite fast. So for customers that want to be successful in digital transformation, it's important that they prioritize cybersecurity because it's a game changer. And the reason for all of this is, we've seen now and then the material impact that comes with that is linked to cybersecurity attacks, elevating cybersecurity from just a technical issue to a strategic matter that needs to be addressed, with the responsibilities of the executive, as in the CEO, getting involved in terms of driving cyber risk management. And then now we're also seeing the responsibility of the board in terms of owning up on the cybersecurity strategy and also the cyber risk framework. So coming back to successful digital transformation, we're moving from an era where we used to emphasize security by design, meaning that you think about security first, to resilience by design, and I'll come to that. Security by design, successful digital transformation, there are 3 things that needs to be considered in there, because you don't want a transformation that is not going to succeed, which will have a business impact on the organization, on the enterprise. Number 1 is to actually identify security controls in advance. Number 2 is to look at gradual implementations, because when you release in terms of your MVPs, we're able to actually assess the component, and then we move to the next. There's a concept that says you need to end what you release, meaning that you move from one component. If you're successful, you go to the other one. Number 3, it deals with having security or cybersecurity champions as part of your digital transformation to make sure that you drive the right culture. So coming back to where we're moving in terms of resilience, security by design, is because the world has come to an acceptance that you can't stop all the cybersecurity attacks, or can't stop them all. So now you need to get into a space where you are able to actually absorb, especially when you're dealing with line of business systems, and then you're able to absorb an attack, and then you're able to actually now drive towards responding and recovering with minimal business impact in the organization. So there's quite a lot in terms of the stuff that I can talk about. As a philosopher, I'm always tempted, to throw quotations by philosophers. There's a philosopher that, called Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is a Chinese philosopher. So he says, if you don't change direction where you're heading, you are likely to end up where you're heading. So this particular philosophy emphasizes the need for adaptation, the need for intentionality, and then also self-awareness. So when you think about video in terms of all the integrated advisory, we also have positioned ourselves, and that's what makes us unique, even from a cybersecurity perspective, in a sense that from an awareness perspective, especially in line with the strategy, because you want the organization to be able to achieve the strategy that they've set, or the business goal that they've set to achieve. But we understand that the environment can also change.
So that awareness is about, bringing all our experience locally and globally to be able to position to the client, the right type of awareness so that they can be able to make proactive decisions so that they're not derailed where they're going. But also when it comes to intentional strategic decisions, because we have various disciplines that can actually come in to actually inform the client to make a better decision, especially when you are responding to a direction or to the environment. It's one element. But I can speak about many others, like integrated risk management, which speaks to cybersecurity in terms of changes that are also informed by technology, but also regulatory type of changes that we see also changing, and our customers need to be able to proactively prepare and respond to that.
Tutu, if I may quickly add, I think key to what Gilbert just mentioned is the boards and all the oversight bodies need to start really analyzing what their risk appetites and their risk tolerance levels are, because it informs everything from a digital strategy, from the appetite or what needs to be managed from a security perspective, current and then in future. But I thought it's just a quick link to what we see daily in audit committees or board committees, where that level of thinking is coming through because of the change in the environment constant.
Really? Yeah, there's many moving parts. We spoke, I think, earlier on to talk about the number of elections I think everybody has been emphasizing that are going on around the world. We've spoken about the various wars that are just going on around the world at the moment. There is a number of changes, geopolitical, economically. So to your point around the changing landscape and that agility of having the right advisors around the room with a lot of senior persons kind of leading that charge is quite critical. And Marie, maybe turning to you, you also get to be pulled in various directions, I guess, by the business because of fraud being such a, and a susceptible thing in an environment. And in particular in South Africa, we've seen, I think, the past decade or so really accelerating, where enterprises are exposed to fraud, our governments are exposed to fraud. So with this type of offering, when do you get drawn in? And at what point of conversations do the colleagues around the room and outside of the room get to draw you in? And what do they need to be aware of, including our clients? When do you need to start interacting with your forensic advisor as part of your holistic sort of maybe looking at your enterprise overall from the strategy, risk, and so on?
Thank you, Tutu. I thank you for the opportunity to sit around the table with most of my colleagues that refer to me as well as leading the forensic environment, where we see ourselves in the environment, and specifically in the forensic environment and the advisory environment, is to be proactive, not necessarily anytime reactive anymore. We've seen now in the past, and I can easily relate to the past of just 10 years, that we see less success in prosecutions. We see prosecutions taking longer. But what we see also is that the boards and audit committees bring us in to come and play advisory role. And that is so important to have the correct advisors around the table, because they realize there's a problem. And the problem is obviously accountability. They sit there as a board, and the board need to understand what is their own accountability, what's the accountability of the board. I think that also need to take the organization forward. You will know that not long ago we worked in a professional body environment where we picked up a lot of issues with strategy, how they plan strategy, how they plan risk, how they plan specifically procurement issues. But I think if we look at fraud, and one of these days is going to be the International Fraud Week again, we need to help our clients and so on to do that proactive work in order to help them to clean up businesses. In the past, we had the comments, my business is clean. Your business can never be clean. You work with people, you work with vendors, you bring people into your environment. I can just relate to your matter that I also brought Lucas specifically in one of the global companies. They had a problem with the hacking of a payroll system every end of the month. So it was terrible in the sense of their own people couldn't get paid, but they also was not sure what is going out into other people's pockets. And that is immediately, the collaboration is there. And then we sit together and we sit around the table and try and address what is wrong. Also, I think Kobe is the same with public sector, where we in various of the public entities, SOCs and departments, play quite a vital role on a very senior level, because remember also your forensic value that you add is to say, how do you go forward? Or how do you stop the looting of money or the looting of assets?
And maybe with that, so what is the value of technology in this proactive forensic services that you're talking of, where you tend to then collaborate with the various colleagues per se? So how do you guys bring in then technology element, whether it's data, analytics, and so on?
Going forward, if we look at where our play field is obviously big data analytics. Where you work with any client, there will be data. So the first thing that we do is usually looking at what kind of solutions are there. And that is when we also have our meetings with Kaya, that is sitting here next to me, that will say to us how we can also advise and how we can help the client going forward. It's important because the digital environment is big. What we also see is the cybersecurity environment. We have to emphasize that people must make their businesses not only clean but also safe. And they need to do that with your perpetrators are getting more clever. They have good solutions. They have good digital solutions. So for us, the most important thing that is what I also see as businesses move away from big businesses to businesses that can better operate. And Kaya can perhaps take this further, because what we see now, the digital transformation that is happening, is your so-called office staff is getting more trained to be able to deal with these kind of attacks, as well as better themselves in their work environment.
Sure. And I know in the past, and maybe I'll just divert to you, Kai, there's been a level of maybe collaboration in also bringing some solutions within even the forensic environment. But you don't only do that for forensic environment. You look at solutions across the various businesses, and maybe the value of having these functional expertise and you coming in as a technologist, and then together with them building within the industry expert, as we always say, we go to market with sectors that we are confident that we know we've got expertise within BDO, such as your technology, media and telecommunications, and natural resources, public sector, financial services, as well as consumer products. Maybe you can just give us a little bit of a glimpse.
Yeah, so working with Anne-Marie and her forensics team, they provide great technical expertise in the area of forensics. And then we come in with technology and provide sort of like a boost, if you will. I remember a project that we did for one of the state-owned enterprises, where the forensics team came with obviously the knowledge in terms of how to then, go through a lot of data in terms of picking out anomalies, deviations from what was deemed as the truth. And it's all good and well that they're working in that fashion, but it's manual and it takes time. And then we collaborated with her team to then use technology to essentially speed up that same process. And in doing that, the business was obviously, or the benefit to business was that they got the value much quicker from BDO and from that collaboration between digital and forensics. And then also there was an element of, call it digital training and awareness, where we now were working with the forensics team, but to really just up their knowledge so that they can obviously make use of these tools without having the dependency on us. What I also wanted to add on your previous point, Anne-Marie, just around working with data, and you mentioned big data, and that's actually quite a critical point. Working with big data and being part of digital, we've got the skills to actually analyze huge data sets, right? And where it becomes of immense value in the area of forensics as well as risk as well, is around not being limited to now a sample of data, because your budget and your time is limited to only so much. You can use those digital tools to actually cover an entire population that's required, that needs to be assessed, that needs to be verified. And I think that's one of the great benefits in terms of the digital tools that we bring in to really then help the likes of the forensics team. So the collaboration, it's happening. There's knowledge transfer to ensure that the digital skills aren't just restricted to one team, but also the expertise, whether it's risk, whether it's internal audit, whether it's forensics, we actually, uplift those skills as well so that they can utilize the appropriate technologies in their space as well, with obviously support from the digital team.
Brilliant. No, then absolutely. It looks like you want to add in something, Anne-Marie.
Yes, Titi, if I can add in, you will also see there's a lot of restructuring in government. Years ago, it was easy for us to uplift documentation. Now we need to look at data, and we need to find the correct data. So it's absolutely correct what Kaya is saying. So our e-discovery platform, the way that we now get information, evidence to be able to assist our clients is very important. But one thing that I find is the collaboration for all of us that is so important is that the client get the correct advice. Sure. Because we bring together under one umbrella quite a lot of advice from different areas. Sometimes what I've seen in the forensic environment, they may appoint service providers. I don't say it's that service providers, but they could have done better if they looked at the picture, the total picture, and not other pieces of
in terms of that value that you can get from an integrated team. And what does that do for you when you lead evidence, especially as you say, now you've got a lot more reliable data, you've got a lot more coverage, you've got better technology. So leading evidence, I'm assuming, sitting on this side of the table, it becomes a lot more comforting for you as an expert.
Yes, yeah. Yes, Tuta, it's so important that because we sit still with the best evidence rule.
Yeah.
And we must always go to court or any litigation, whether it's labor, whether it's civil, and give the best evidence that we can to get to for the presiding officer to make an informed decision. For us, it's mind-boggling if we can see, we can go there, we know we looked at all the data and there's complete investigation but relevant to the data and the documentation, and obviously our consultation, the data as well. So it helps with that evidence equal.
Absolutely. And I know lately as well with Kaya, you edit in a finance transformation element onto the digital team, but that particular finance transformation team working across all of the service lines with risk people, or whether it's our outsourcing services, our accounting and bookkeeping outsourcing services. Why is that important of having, I always call it having that plumber in the finance, understanding exactly a finance function, and you coming in layering the digital, or at least enhancing the digital aspects at clients. And I know you guys have been throwing in terms like hyper automation as one of the things, what AI is possibly doing, even whether it's within the finance functions or even across operations itself. So why is that important, and what value are you seeing with some of your clients across the industries? And maybe you can add in on your end, Bobby, around in how that ties in from a risk perspective. Yeah.
I think one of the areas within a business that is really ripe for efficiencies is within finance. A lot of the work that is done within finance tends to be procedural and sometimes manual in nature. There are quite a plethora of solutions on the market that one can bring in, but what's key is, and again, it's going back to, I think, the first theme of this conversation. It's understanding that particular business and how it operates and how it derives value for its clients, right? But finance and anything financial is typically an integral part of whatever value that business is in the market for. So we obviously as BDO, under your leadership, Tutu, we took that decision to really start this new capability of finance transformation, because we really want to drive efficiencies for our clients, whether it's looking at the manual processes and then creating digitized workflows, whether it's from requisitions, pure approvals. We've mapped our processes for quite a few of our clients and automated those same financial workflows and derived efficiencies that talk to increased throughput, increased productivity, and lowered costs of doing business within that finance function, because you're now using technology to do the heavy lifting that was done before the technology was there. So it's really started to reap quite a few benefits for the clients that you've worked with. And they keep asking us for more. We're now looking at even ERP solutions where clients are saying, guys, I'm not happy with my current ERP. How do we improve it? What do we need to do? We then bring in some of our colleagues around this table. We then will look at typically the finance functions and processes that you run. Let's document them. Let's understand where there might be gaps once we've gone through that. And then let's find very niche areas where we can then leverage the right technology to then automate and bring in those efficiencies.
Right, yeah. Often hear a lot of my clients complain about the integrity of data that comes out of finance. Often hear also complain about the delays of, kind of getting financial information. And you've rightfully said, Kaya, that really, fortunately or unfortunately, numbers get to be the heart of a business, because that's where decisions are made, and numbers, you can argue to say, is the end of the story around your story of the business. So if that is not right, it becomes really then difficult to lead and as an executive to make appropriate decisions, or even as a board member to make appropriate decisions. And that collaboration then, as I said, with these finance transformation teams and risk, what value are you guys deriving?
Tuto, I think the key issue that we've all seen is that the finance function or the role of a CFO has changed. It's no longer just a numbers person. He or she is a key enabler to the business. Your numbers, as you said, does not allow you to make a decision to invest, to disinvest, or to build. You can't. And if the quality of the financial information is poor, then your decision making will be hindered. And that's why it's key. If you look at the finance function as a whole, there's a big move, and it started in government, with creating a chief procurement officer, because CFOs have not necessarily been trained to procure. And it's always been deemed maybe a CFO function, maybe a logistics function. I think it was all over. But there's a key drive in the public sector and slowly seen in the private sector to create that. So although we're creating many chiefs, the key issue around the risk process is that we need to ensure, from a risk management perspective, from an internal control environment perspective, that one enables the CFO to be able to depend on the quality of the data. So where we tend to come in, apart from a risk analysis, an ITC analysis or risk analysis, where we usually then bring in our ITC experts that's within the firm, you do collaborate with the accountants in the firm. because not all ERP systems are the same, although the output should be more or less the same. You need the expertise of a BSO or the outsourcing team that understands how you connect the whole business. And as I stated, with the CFO's function being an advisor to the business, you need to know that your controls are in place for you to play that role.
Right.
And if it's through data and the quality of information that comes through, it then enables the CFO to play his or her role. But key to that is us as a risk manager or an internal auditor or a business advisor to bring that together with a strategy. Because ultimately, from a board perspective, from a CEO perspective, a company wants to achieve their strategy. There's objectives that they set, and we then come in to identify the risks and opportunities. I think we tend to make the mistake to only see the negative side. There's a lot of opportunities that come with war. There's a lot of opportunities that come with elections. And I think all the biggest economies almost had elections this year.
Yeah.
What does that mean for the world? What does that mean for us? But from a risk perspective, it is always to be open-minded to see what needs to be linked to the strategy, what actions can help a company achieve that, and then that your support systems enable you.
Sure.
Because I think that's a key issue, whether it's a finance function, whether it's your risk enablers, whether it's an operational system, everything comes back to finance. Everything costs money. Everything is a form of investment. So we as internal auditors or we as risk advisors will fail if we do not know the climate in which you operate, the systems that are based potentially for that. But we've seen the value of having continuous engagement with the boards on the risk, especially now with cyber, and that's a real issue. And now it's not about, like you said, if we're going to be attacked. It's all about the way. And are you able to respond? And is the CFO able to respond? Because at the end, it is many a times either HR or finance systems that are compromised.
Sure.
I have read recently, and you know I'm an Indra Noomi fan, but she wrote about PepsiCo and their whole strategy to perform with purpose.
Sure.
And that's what a CFO, and at that point in time, she was CEO of PepsiCo. But she played the role of a CFO. She then became the president and then the CEO. How she enabled the PepsiCo to change from being sugar-filled, salt-filled. So the key issue is their sense was PWP, perform with purpose. And it was about enabling. It was about enabling change. And she saw the whole organization as her client also. She understood the needs of the people on the ground. And I think that as advisors, we should never forget. We need to be on site. As a senior director, as a junior director, as a junior intern, you get to know your client by being on the ground, understanding what they really struggle with. Because at times when we meet with senior executives, they see the outcome of what the people on the ground struggle with. And we need to enable change through being on the ground, understanding that, enabling the systems, enabling the data. So that's key for a risk manager.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Kobe. And maybe as we are just about to wrap it up, and I would like to hear actually from all of you around the table, then just how we see the future and how we'll continue maybe adding that value onto enterprises, which eventually I say it's really adding value to the economy, not the South African economy, but the global economy. Also giving them the support that you have of your professional or your colleagues around the world, all of them that I think it's over 115,000 of them around the world in about 160 countries, therefore getting exposed to different types of projects and different types of maybe sectors, and the depth will differ for each of them. So yeah, if you can just maybe in closing paint that picture, how do you foresee the evolving mode of integrated advice? Starting with you, Kai.
Yeah, sure. In the data space is a very good sort of motto, and my apologies if I butcher it now, but it really looks at the sort of three levels that describe the world according to data. You get what happened. So there's a report that tells you this is what happened. So that's descriptive, right? And then the second level of that from descriptive is, then you get what could happen, which is prescriptive. You know what I mean? This is what could happen. And then you might get like even a third element now. What could happen? What can we influence, right? So in the world of constant change, which we find ourselves in, I think it's important for businesses to really find the right advisors that can help them sort of shape the future for their businesses and their enterprises. As opposed to always looking in the rearview mirror, what happened? Let's look to the future in terms of what is out there that we can control for our benefit, so that we ensure there's viability to our business, there's viability to what we do. And I see BDO as a strong advisor from a digital perspective in terms of how to leverage the appropriate digital technologies to really help businesses manage their risk and to really stay in the game. We want to give them that competitive advantage using digital. And I really think we've done it in the past, we'll continue doing it, and we obviously want to keep doing that for our customers.
Thank you. And you, Anna-Marie?
Thank you, Tutu. From my point of view, I would like to look at BDO as a service provider in the future that really is going to assist our clients with our proactive work. What I can see is that we need to help our clients. We need to help our clients safeguard their names, their claims, but also their assets. What I can see also is the value of training. The training that I think all the people around the table can also provide in the industry. But more so as we provide it in-house to our people as well. So I think all of us around the table, I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, but we all believe in in-house training. We all believe in having internships. And I think from there we can help. Because what we can see is that if we're not going to intervene, people is going to lose their jobs because businesses is not sustainable without proper processes. And your processes are being enhanced by good certificates. We cannot think that we're going to work according to 10 years ago. It might have been a winning recipe then. It's not a winning recipe anymore. So I would like to see that that the industry understand that we bring a holistic service. We work well with our global colleagues. Our solutions in the forensic environment is linked up with our global colleagues. And to take just think for yourself, if you look at some of the matters in the news, the money that has been looted is not in SA. The money that has been looted is all over the world. So we need to understand what is going on with our global partners, and they're very supportive. Relevant to solutions, relevant to training, but not only that, I think, and Kobe and Gilpresh will talk about risk. What we see is the change in legislation. Our new legislation at Section 34A that we concentrate now on, your anti-money laundering processes, your anti-bribery processes. Businesses is not going to be able to say, in the old days I had a risk register addressing certain things. There's more liability now and more accountability.
Sure. Yeah. And with that, maybe that's a very good link, Kobe, in the risk space. What is it that you foresee? The future in relation to then having the strong capability around you?
Sure. Look, I think from a risk advisory services point of view, we are probably one of the more established business units globally, one of the bigger teams. And I still believe firmly, we believe in our function from a risk advisory perspective must help people achieve their dreams. Whether it's revenue, whether it's profits, whether it's creating a new product, risks are always there. Opportunities are always there. And from a global perspective, we work well together. Currently, the internal audit standards have changed. We call it the Global Internal Audit Standards now, effective 9th of Jan 2025. And there's a global effort putting a strategy together, putting quite a lot of to change the methodology, how we do things better and implementing that. So I do believe as a RAS, and taking hands with all of the other advisory services, we achieve so much more. There's so many interconnections that you create with risk. Risk is within the opportunities. Risk linked to forensics, linked to digital, links to cyber, links to people strategies, organizational design. Everything has a risk chapter, an opportunity chapter. And so our skills that we can leverage on goes globally across all the sectors that one can think of. So for us, I think we're quite excited about the journey and a journey with fellow colleagues with different skill sets that make us perform better with our clients. So that to me is an exciting opportunity. Leading the way forward. Brilliant.
Just to deal with my closing remarks, I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. I'll deal with the shift. I read a report that speaks about the technologies that actually make up our technology or digital ecosystem, that there's 200 other technologies over and above what we used to that actually make up the ecosystem. So that's the kind of environment that we actually playing at. While we're dealing with AI, there's introduction of quantum computing on the other side, where now there's a big research in terms of, dealing with the impacts of quantum computing in relation to security, but also the advantages that such technology will actually bring to the world itself. So dealing with quantum computing, it's expected to actually reach maturity in 2035. But yeah, look, while I'm talking about it now, you're also dealing with criminals that are actually now getting into technology environment. Even if data is encrypted, they harvest that because they are also piggybacking on such technology to be able to decrypt that data. And at that particular point, they'll be able to actually now perform extortion differently, or ransom differently. But while talking about the shift, it's important to deal with certain numbers. One of the area that actually speaks to cybersecurity is that of internet. If you look at the internet growth, and internet is specific to security in the sense that it facilitates the transmission of data and also services. So I read a report about the growth of the internet from 1992 to 2022. In 1992, we're sitting at 100 gigabits per second. 2022, we went up to 150,000 gigabits per second. Just a week ago, I actually did a search just to see where we are. We're currently sitting at 1.2 terabits per second, which is 1,000 gigabits per second. So this is the kind of world that we're living in at the moment. It's constantly changing. And, from our side, in terms of video, look, what integrated advisory service means is that we need to be holistic in the way that we actually help our clients actually achieve their strategies, because the world is changing in different directions. You speak about regulatory, you speak about technology in terms of efficiency or production and all of that. You speak about security. So while one part is changing, it's touching on regulation. So everybody now needs to be geared even for one particular client altogether. So in order to do that, I have 4 things that I've jotted down. One is one thing that I spoke about in terms of self-awareness. You constantly have to be ahead in terms of, being aware of the environment. From a security perspective, I'm telling you what is currently taking place even before quantum computing matures. So you need to be there. What is it that clients can do? We're now at a point where we're engaging clients in discussions to say, okay, look, let's start looking at controls in terms of, changing technologies and pushing towards technologies that are quantum resistant in terms of, from a cryptography perspective. So, that shift in preparation for such a time as that. When we speak about, adaptability, it speaks about agility. You need to be agile because things are changing. Yeah. I've had a customer engaging us on Thursday. They were dealing with business issue. They couldn't trade with the US because, they don't comply with certain regulations in the US pertaining to security. So By Monday, we needed to have a team on site to assess the equipments, make sure that they have processes, and also govern the right governance to be able to actually comply with the requirements. So that's the kind of agility that clients are looking for. The other thing is around, long-term thinking and also sustainability. I spoke about resilience. Sustainability is one of the capabilities that we have within advisory. And it's something that now fits in very well with businesses, because businesses want you to be able to think what's ahead. Gone are the days when you're actually dealing with businesses that are measured on just today. We're talking about businesses that have to live beyond us. So I'll stop at that for now.
Thank you, Gilchrist. So Anna Marie, as we come to a close, so what do you see as then the future of forensics and taking into account the integrated advisory services?
The clients out there needs to understand what BDO really can offer. BDO, and like we discussed, we have our reactive services. There will always be a core process, the mitigation process, but we need to train clients that you can avoid those as well. And that is why I refer also to proactive services. Currently, what we did, and with your support, we appointed a director also that is now responsible for our forensic technology services, and that is done in line with our global offices. So what we do now is we also offer our solutions as part of our forensic work. Or in other words, if a client do have, and we have mining clients that approach us to come and help with their systems, their payroll system, that Kobe alluded to, the financial systems, Kaya alluded to it as well, because that is where you see the problems, the things go wrong. And if you look in the mining environment, for instance, and I would like to give you an example where we all know that Zamazamas, problem with Zamazamas. It's a big problem with payroll and with payments, because people go under the mine, into the mine, and they don't come up. Nobody is picking it up. And that is where Kaya comes in with his solutions. And we'll be looking at payroll audits. So those are the kind of things that people need to be proactive. We just completed a big project on lifestyle audits. Lifestyle audit needs to be done properly. Needs to look at who's your employee. We go to the bank, and I think we learn from the banks as well to say, who's your client? But not a lot of companies know who's your employee. Who do you appoint? Who do you bring in as a vendor? So those proactive services is definitely part of the future that we must look at. What do we allow? What Kudi was also saying about the CFOs, that is the kind of assistance that we can provide to the boards and to the CFOs, because you need to make sure that who do you appoint in your environment to go forward? Sure.
And you spoke about safeguarding assets as an important element of any organization. So before you get hit, make sure that you at least have brought in awareness and people know what to do in order to circumvent that fraud.
Absolutely. And it's going to affect your reputation.
Absolutely.
If you as a board, well-educated people, not look at these proactive environment and systems,
Absolutely.
you might later on be quite red-faced.
Right, thank you, Anna Marie, for that. And maybe just in tying up in the risk elements, Kobe, just your final thoughts around then the future of risk.
Tutor, there's always risk in future and opportunities in the future. Making it quite specific to our internal audit environment, the global internal audit standards are coming into effect on the 9th of January in 2025. And from a global perspective, we are part of a team that's leading, developing a new methodology, a strategy to be compliant. But many of our clients do not always realize the impact of the internal audit standards and what it will have on the industry of internal audit. And maybe some of the internal auditors, if you read through the new standards, you come to a very specific realization that the standards for the first time really emphasize the use of technology. And an internal auditor being capable of using technology to audit, because life and the world has changed.
Sure.
Over and above that, there's a real emphasis on the role of the chief audit executive and their capabilities, the skill set and the internal auditor skill set. So not only linking that to technology, but linking that to really understand the risk, internal controls, and that a control and the risk can never be the same thing. I think there's a lot of issues sometimes when findings are drafted where industry do not understand how to draft a finding linked to the risk identified. Key to that, obviously, it's a very proud moment for BDO South Africa Risk Advisory Services, where we really proactively participate in training. We created a RAS training academy that emphasized building skills and developing our internal staff to be auditors of the future, which includes Power BI training. It includes training on various data analytics systems to enable us to audit populations and no longer a sample of 50 or 15 or whatever. Making a practical example, one of our learnings are also, especially if in your mining environment, you've got thousands of people working for. So if your sample size of 15 in terms of the prop cards that's been checked, and you select 15 people that always check in and check out, to your point with the Zamazanas, super cool, controls work. But you can select another sample of 15 people where none of them have clocked out again. And that's why we really focus on the use of technology to enable us to provide you with an outcome or an assessment of your control environment over the population. So yeah, super excited. I think these are worlds that will open up from a risk advisory perspective.
Indeed, today has been a powerful reminder of what is possible when we bring our different capabilities together. From your host, Tuto Masasa, happy holidays to our clients and staff.